Can Will Smith be charged with a battery for slapping Chris Rock, for clocking Chris Rock at the Oscars last Sunday night? Yes, and I'll tell you why. And does the prosecution need Chris Rock to press charges, to file a police report? No, and I'll tell you why. And I will also tie this to an incident that happened, a prior arrest of Will Smith for guess what? In 1989. So we're going to talk about that. So first of all, I want to say thank you to all of you that have subscribed. I appreciate all the support. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Hit the like button, hit the bell notification. And this video is simply my opinion. So please leave a comment or a question and let me know what your analysis is. So who am I? I'm Michele Hagan. I'm a legal analyst and a former prosecutor. You may recognize me because I provided a lot of legal analysis on the Elizabeth Holmes case. So let's get into it. We're going to look at the law because you know me. I like to look at the law. And by the way, I'm going to correct some things that have been going around that just aren't true. So let's start with dispelling the myths. Number one, the victim does not press charges. The prosecutor does. Number two, what Will Smith did, allegedly, when he slapped Chris Rock, is not an assault. That's a battery. And I'll show you what the difference is, or I'll tell you what the difference is. And Chris Rock does not have to file a police report. Were there any witnesses? Were there any witnesses to this slap? So, I want to read something to you that I saw that was from one of the Oscar producers who was interviewed, I think, on Good Morning America, in relation to the police officers that night at the Oscars. And this producer said, okay, again, this is hearsay. This producer said the Los Angeles police were ready to arrest Will Smith after he slapped Chris Rock. They were saying, you know, this is a battery. Yes, it's a battery. They said, we will go get him. We are prepared. We're prepared to get him right now. You can press charges. No. Chris Rock doesn't press charges. The district attorney, the prosecutor, or I think in LA it's the city attorney. They're the ones who press charges. Okay, think about this. What if Will Smith and Chris Rock were dating? Okay, let's just take it to the domestic violence because I think you'll get this real quick. Can you imagine a police officer saying to the victim, do you want to press charges after he or she's just been beat up? They don't ask. We don't ask. When I was a prosecutor, I'm sorry, that's way many years ago. But for some reason, this victim pressing charges is floating around out there. It's not correct. If it's a civil lawsuit, yeah, and the plaintiff decides not to press charges or to proceed with the lawsuit, okay, then you don't proceed. But the question is, there's two questions. One, was a crime committed? And two, can it be proved? Is there evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that Will Smith committed a battery? That's it. So let's look at, and again, I want to say too that this Oscar producer did say that Chris Rock, they asked him, the LAPD asked Chris Rock if he wanted to do what he would like, what kind of action he would like the LAPD to take. And they said that Rock declined to file a police report. Excuse me, but anybody in the room could file a police report. Anybody who witnessed that can file a police report. Even the police officers at the scene. So I ask you this. Had it been some random dude who did exactly what Will Smith did, is there any doubt in your mind that that person would have been put in handcuffs immediately and taken away? All right, so let me give you another example, aside from the domestic violence. And the reason prosecutors don't ask and police don't ask victims to prosecute is because of the intimidation, because of the threats. And look what's going on now with Chris Rock. And again, this is all my opinion, and I could be wrong. All my opinion here. Chris Rock, is probably constantly being asked whether or not he wants to file a police report or press charges. I'm sure he's considering the consequences to his livelihood, right? And I can tell you this, Chris Rock has got a great civil lawsuit for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, for assault and battery in the civil arena, and probably several other causes of action. So he can proceed civilly if he would like to, but I'm sure he's considering the consequences. And I'm sure the pressure and the intimidation on every victim of violence is weighing upon him. And it's a terrible situation that happened. But it was violent. It was very violent. It was very shocking. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. So imagine if this had been a drunk driving case. And the police officer comes upon a drunk driver who smashes into a tree. Who's the victim? Does the tree make a police report? No. The police officer, based on seeing what happened, arrests. Okay, there's many times we call them complaining witnesses or the complainant. That could be a neighbor who witnesses a bar fight or a domestic violence incident. Okay, so again, the victim does not press charges. The victim doesn't have to file a police report. But here's the key. So in domestic violence cases or even child abuse cases, many of which I handled, including the bar fights, including the assault and batteries against police officers, etc., you still have to be able to prove your case. Is there evidence to show beyond a reasonable doubt that a crime happened, that it occurred? Okay, so let's look at the reasons. Let's look at let me give you 4 ways or 4 types of evidence that could be used against Will Smith. Number 1, they can just play the video of the telecast, of the Oscars telecast. Chris Rock doesn't have to say anything. It would be nice if he testifies, but he doesn't have to. We all saw what happened. So, you have video evidence, number 1. Number 2, it's called excited utterance. In evidence, when you try to get in statements that are made outside the court, it's called hearsay, right? You want to use those statements made outside the court for the truth of the matter asserted, so they say, right? So you want to use statements that were made outside the court, which is, what did Chris say when he was on the stage just after he got clocked by Will Smith? He said, Will Smith just slapped the heck out of me, or something to that, right? That's called an excited utterance. And that is admissible. It's a hearsay exception. It comes in. It's admissible. Why? Because the victim is under the stress of what just happened, and the court deems that trustworthy. It's not like you went and interviewed them 2 weeks later. We saw it within seconds of him being clocked by Will Smith. So that's admissible. So you don't need Chris Rock to testify. Okay, so number 1, video. Number 2, Chris Rock statements, excited utterance. Number 3, Will Smith has admitted, he has confessed. That's called an admission. That also comes in. That's also admissible and used against Will Smith. If they decide to prosecute this case and he decides to fight it, I doubt he would. Okay, but this is just my opportunity to also teach you a little bit of evidence here. Number 4, it's called a prior bad act. Prior bad act. So, in other words, this goes back to the 1989 incident where Will Smith was arrested for aggravated assault. And it was, I think, just after, I'm not sure the time period, but it was just after him getting his first Grammy and the first Grammy Award for a rap artist. So is there a pattern here? Is there a pattern? 1989, it's the Grammys. He wins and he gets arrested after that. Some period of time after that, he gets arrested for aggravated assault, and it relates to him getting into a verbal argument with a record, I think it was a record producer or record distributor. He got into an argument with a guy, and then he told his bodyguard, Will Smith told his bodyguard to go beat the guy up. And his bodyguard beat him up so violently that they almost took out his orbital. I think it's called an orbital, right? That's pretty violent. So Will Smith and his bodyguard were arrested and charged. Okay, I think what happened with Will Smith's part is his case got dismissed. So, what's going on here? What is the pattern that's happening here is my question. All right, so let's take a look at the law, and then we're going to look at the possible defenses he could have if he decided, or if anyone wanted to fight a battery charge. And by the way, it's not an assault. I know you keep hearing it's being reported as an assault. No, it's a battery. An assault is when you go and try to... Let me tell you what the law says. The law says an assault is to prove that the defendant is guilty of an assault. The people must prove that 1, the defendant did an act that by its nature would directly and probably result in the application of force to a person. Well, we don't have something that possibly could result in the application of force. So no, it's not an assault because Will Smith hit him. That's not an assault. That's a battery. Okay, so now let's look at what a simple battery is. It's Penal Code 242, by the way. Okay, so to prove the defendant is guilty of a battery, the people must prove 1, the defendant willfully and unlawfully touched, in this case, Chris Rock, in a harmful or offensive manner. And by the way, I'm reading from the California jury instructions, okay? I'm not making this stuff up. See the jury instructions, okay? So, did Will Smith willfully and unlawfully touch Chris Rock in a harmful or offensive manner? And Will Smith did not act in self-defense or in the defense of someone else. Okay, I know there's a lot of reporting out there that he was protecting his family. They were offended by the joke that Chris Rock made regarding Will Smith's wife. Like, is it honorable to go clock somebody for their words, for a joke, maybe even a lousy joke? Okay, so someone commits an act willfully when he or she does it willingly or on purpose. Well, clearly that was on purpose. It is not required that he or she intended to break the law, hurt someone else, or gain any advantage. The slightest touching in California is a battery. The touching does not have to cause pain or injury of any kind. Now, I'll tell you, that looked like a pretty forceful slap. So I wonder if Chris Rock has, checked out his head for any injuries or his neck? I don't know. I mean, Will Smith appears to be a big guy, and that looked like a pretty forceful hit. So, you don't have to cause any pain. So there doesn't have to be any visible injuries. There doesn't have to be any injuries at all to Chris Rock. It's the slightest touching. And that was certainly more than a slight touch, don't you think? Okay, so let's talk about, they also are reporting that it was a joke. He was retaliating because of a joke about his wife. Well, there's a jury instruction right here that says insulting words are not a defense. And this is what it says. Words, no matter how offensive, and acts that are not threatening are not enough to justify an assault or a battery. Words, no matter how offensive or even a bad joke, does not justify a battery, nor does being honorable, in the honor of your wife or showing that you're a tough guy. None of that is a defense. It is no defense to battery or assault that insulting or offensive words or acts that fall short of a threat of imminent harm. So none of that, right? So this is, maybe one of the defenses they could say was, he was Chris Rock his joke was so insulting that he had a right to hit him? No, you're not allowed to do that in California. It's not a defense. Okay, so let's talk about maybe he could say in defense of another. So there's a couple defenses to a battery. One is self-defense. Two is defense of another. Those are the two main ones I'll talk about. Well, was there right of self-defense? Well, if you look at the video, Chris Rock had his hands behind his back at the time he was clocked. There was no threat. So it says, the defendant is not guilty of battery if he used force against the other person in a lawful self-defense or defense of another. The defendant acted in self-defense or defense of another if the defendant reasonably, it's Friday, the defendant reasonably believed that he or she or someone else was in imminent danger of suffering bodily injury. His wife was, I don't know how many feet behind sitting in a chair. This was not defense of his wife. This was not defense of another. And there is no self-defense. There was no threat to Will Smith. So, that was just an exercise in explaining the defenses to battery. So, a joke does not equate with getting clocked or slapped. You can't, words never justify being hit. Defending your wife? No. She wasn't in imminent danger, and neither was Will Smith. Self-defense? No. Chris Rock was not threatening in any way to Will Smith. Okay? So, that's my analysis. And my question is, what was going on with Will Smith? I mean, I think, having handled many cases involving violence, whether it was domestic violence or child abuse or a bar fight or friends getting an argument, all of that, or assaulting and hitting a police officer, assaulting a neighbor, any of those cases. What is going on? I mean, how do you get to that level of violence and to do it in front of the world? It's my experience has been, I looked at that and I just have seen the clips. That's a cry for help. That is a cry for help from Will Smith. That's just my opinion, okay? Obviously, something is going on with him. And the fact that he was arrested in 1989 for an aggravated assault and told his bodyguard, allegedly, to go beat this guy up? Does Will Smith think he has no consequences? Does he think he gets a free pass? Do we as a society give people a free pass? Look, and like I said, if it had been the random dude who got up out of the audience at the Oscars, did exactly what Will Smith did, he would have been in handcuffs and charged, and they wouldn't be asking anybody about pressing charges. Okay? So, is this an example of where, famous people get a pass, powerful people get a pass? Is justice truly blind? If they don't, they need to prosecute this case. Okay, in my opinion, it's a slam dunk, this case, and I'm sure it'll be negotiated, maybe to something less, or maybe Will Smith pleads to a battery, and maybe he just gets probation. But one of the conditions that they may want to consider, and again, this is just my opinion, is that he goes to an anger management class or therapy or something. Because how are we holding Will Smith accountable for this? And how many children saw that telecast? And how many people out there think they have a pass to just clock somebody, to slap somebody because of something they said? Not to mention, I think Chris Rock is going on tour, his stand-up comedy tour. He's now, I'm sure he was traumatized. I know that he said he's still processing what happened. Like anybody who gets clocked like that, any kind of, a victim of violence, how, is he going to have to be thinking about, concerned about people coming up to the stage while he's doing his comedy routine and he gets clocked for something he said? So I hope they really think about this case, and I hope they really consider prosecuting it, because this case is a slam dunk, and in my opinion, Will Smith needs to be held accountable. So tell me what you think. What's your analysis? Please do subscribe, share this video, hit the like button, hit the bell notification, and do leave a comment. Thank you very much for watching.